Hi, Rich. The turning lock was our big project for this week, but I do want to make a few reminders about your natural turn. Once again, reminding you that your swayed side or your low side needs to be boosted. So you need to have more firmness and more elasticity in the right arm. I thought you were getting a nice swing into your natural turn. Sometimes you were overturning between 1 and 2. So be careful of that. Remember, all your side steps commence as a forward swing. So when we say that there's a quarter turn between 1 and 2, that turn happens very late as you're moving through the big toe of the right foot and with that intention to move forward on your own track. So if you turn your body too early, you will turn into the lady's track. So be careful. If you really turn here, you're going to come into her space. So I'm going to think of rolling that marble or sending my swing in the same direction between 1 and 2. Swinging forward. I have that feeling of turning out into the future, not right here where I am, allowing the lady to turn in her own space. And that quarter turn that happens between 1 and 2 then is happening very late. It's not a swivel here, which will end up then overturning on the last part. And that's why you were losing your balance there. There is always an eighth of a turn remaining on these open figures where the feet are open on 2. There's always another eighth as the feet are closed. So if you overturn, then you're going to stumble at that point. So just a reminder about that, and that you're shaping, be careful that you don't allow the right arm to collapse. Or the other thing that I saw you doing sometimes in preparation for your spin turn was allowing that right arm to go forward too far. I do need to have a feeling of space between my right shoulder and my right arm for my girl, but I'm actually working in opposition to my hips at that point. I'm feeling this wide open frame, space for my girl. Right. So it may simply look as though I've held my frame, but I've given it a feeling of elasticity in the opposite direction, and also as the curve increases, that I'll feel extra support on my right side. So just a reminder about that. We've been talking about the supporting leg creating the next action on everything that we do. So completing my natural turn, I will make sure to use my support leg to produce the spin turn. Then another point we talked about was going into the rise of the spin turn, engaging through the leg that's behind you. So even though we're rolling up through the right foot, you will project yourself out of your left leg. A bit of a rudder there, a pole boost to send you. That gives you much more stability and continuity and creates an elasticity in the movement. So I'm not letting this leg be empty as I do 2 of the spin turn. Propelling from that foot and keeping that energy going to do the rise. I'll do a little reminder here on an underturned spin turn. The third step is ended back and slightly to the side. It's more of a rocking action. When we do the normal spin turn, which is just under a full turn, we have to swing the left leg once again forward rather than keeping it back and letting it drift to the side. We have to swing it forward so that the end of the turn it will be side and slightly back. So that's where we are on this spin turn. Now in gold, we often use an overturned spin turn. At this point, I will end up more to the side. So that's for another day. But the foot position of step 3 has a lot to do with the intention of the amount of turn coming off of the second step. So I think what was happening there, you were not giving yourself a good enough boost or swinging forward enough, and sometimes that leg was hanging too far back, which pulls you away from the girl. So that was a supporting leg here. Then we have a supporting leg there. That becomes the new supporting leg. And when you land on 3 of your spin turn, I need to notice where I am so that I can be balanced in my left thigh to now create the right shoulder lead, to create the opening in my right side to lead the lock. Okay, I'm back. I got interrupted the other day. We were talking about using the standing leg, the supporting leg, in the turning lock, and I had just left off with the catching action of 3 of the spin turn, and how much we need to now use our standing leg, which is the left leg. This is for the gentleman. So as we're catching the weight, it's important not to fall off of that foot, but to have a feeling of 2 directions, a direction moving back and a direction dancing forward or intending forward. So I give my lady a cushion and allow my balance to be maintained in my standing leg. That action, as I'm absorbing there and as my knee is working in towards the big toe, is speaking to my free leg, or my picture leg, which is now moving in preparation to move into this side lead or shoulder lead to invite the lady into the lock. Now, you made mention of outside partner. That is not an outside partner action. It's true that we use a shoulder lead in order for the next step to be taken outside partner, but on a lock, it's not. The shoulder lead now puts an element of slightly sideways movement into it, which causes a lock to happen, so we're not moving straight back. But we will not be going into an outside partner position. The lady will still be enclosed. She may, if I shape this, if I sway, she may open her head, so we may have sort of a promenade shaping on the top. And we'll talk a little bit more about shaping once we get this under control, this sense of balance over the free leg, the balance over the standing leg, sorry, so that the free leg can swing. Now the timing then on the lock will be 1 and 2, 3. We made a point of realizing that that 2 will be the highest point, and then the level is maintained on 3. So you don't want this to be flat, and you don't want it also to bounce. There is a slight cushioning action here before we press up into the 2. So we do want to really feel that weight staying forward so that we can get that little bit of a lilt. So using my left knee forward, my right side leading. Now once again, I need to have enough balance and weight on my left leg that I can produce this leftward turn. We're ending our turning lock in promenade position. So I will go over a point that we should notice in the technique book. And I did talk about this some time ago when I was looking at ending a weave or ending an outside change in promenade or moving into parallel position. There's a difference in the placement of the man's foot. And of course that has to do with his intention for the next step. So we'll get to that momentarily. We're going to have a turn to the left here. So this has had a right turn to the left. So this is described as back and slightly rightward. You can see the position now. If I don't have balance over my left leg, then I can't use my thigh and my hip to indicate to the lady that we're going to be coming out. So there will be, that turn will be there regardless whether we're going to promenade or whether we're going into parallel, into a natural turn at the end. But the foot position, because of where my spine is, the foot position will be different here. If I'm going to promenade, I'll be side, right, with the diagonal wall alignment, rather than slightly forward if I was going into parallel. So that's important to notice, because sometimes this foot was too far forward. Now for a promenade position, that's essentially you're blocking the lady, you're in the way. You're not giving her enough space to come through into the promenade position. But take a look for a moment at what we want to inspire in the lady. She also will be cushioning into the 3 of the spin turn, receiving the information here to move into the lock and to use her right thigh to assist in this turn to the left. At that point in Promenade, then she can open her head and will place her foot also in that side position, diagonal center. Right, so if your foot would be slightly forward, I would not be able to continue to bring my right side around because I would be sent backwards. So the placement of 3 is very important. So that's the point of that. Now, one of the exercises I had you do was to try to stand between your feet, because what we don't want is the body falling heavy onto 3 and into the chasse. So I'll do a bad one here, letting the weight fall over the foot. So we're making an effort to be up and to suspend ourselves and keep the weight even between the feet, and then pour the weight into the foot. That takes us then to the next step, commencing the chasse, to be careful not to open the legs and dance into the lady's space. So you'll side here moving along the line of dance on 3, and then you want to take step 1 of the chasse, forward and across in promenade position in CVNP. There's a tendency there to open the body and open the legs. And then what happens on your chasse also is you end up moving backwards on the chasse instead of allowing it to move slightly forward. So if I just look at the chasse, then I'm traveling on my own line, and then I will take the step side and slightly forward and closing the feet, because I'm moving along the line of dance. So that's the direction. But I have also the intention to move forward at the end of it. So my body will progress very slightly to the wall. So what are the 2 big errors? And we've experienced both of them, and that is to cut the lady's space here by moving here instead of here, and then taking this almost straight forward, running over the girl, or opening this up and then backing up into the room and getting that wobble. So we're going to try to discipline our directions a little more clearly. Remember here, it's our lady who is closing. My alignment, my diagonal wall alignment, and my movement along the line of dance will remain consistent. It's the lady who will turn to close to the man. So I think sometimes what happens when you end up going this way is that you realize you must close your lady, you must close your arms back from promenade to closed position, and you let that cause an overturn in your body, traveling all the way down to the feet, and end up moving in the wrong direction in the room. So we have to be able to turn, again, from the ankles, from the thighs, from the arms, and sometimes it's just a matter of correcting what we've had to do in promenade, where we've had to allow some turn in the hips underneath the shelf here, and we've got to allow it to correct. So we've got to allow our hip to move back in line with the shoulder. So again, it's that idea of different parts of your blocks of weight, or different areas, your trunk and your hips, or your hips and your upper torso. There's different amounts of turn. It's not just one big movement. So if I'm moving here into the promenade, I'm pretty well into a twisted or really strong spiral position. When I undo that spiral, I'll come back to lining things up. That is the natural thing to do, is to allow the body to come back to the normal position. And if you allow that to happen, then you're assisting or agreeing with the lady to close. It's the same thing for her. She's pretty well wound up here. Her natural flow then is to allow the uncoiling of the body back into the normal closed position. So I hope I've covered all the things that we talked about. Remember that lift, the highest place on 2, maintaining it on 3, because we're going into promenade, moving to the side, not dumping the weight. That will give you the ability then to cross the line on your own, instead of moving into the lady space. So hopefully I've covered all the points that we've talked about so far. On this week's lesson, I think we'll spend a little bit more time on this placement of the 2 and the 3. And maybe we'll take a look in the technique book in case you're looking it up. And there's some places where you have to look at a figure and then you have to go back and look at another spot in the book. For instance, the way the weave is written, the way the turning lock is written, the way the outside change is written. They're written with the next figure as a natural turn. That places you in a different position on step 3 because of where you're going next. You're going more into diagonal wall than along the line of dance. So that means when you look at those figures, you'll have to go back to what does the outside change say about ending in promenade. Maybe that's a technical, not too technical, I don't think, because you do use your book as a reference. So that will help you to not be confused about what you're reading there. So let's go back to the ballroom technique and let's take a look at the way these things are written as far as the turning lock and where to find the ending in promenade. So the foot positions are actually a result of what happens when we dance with a certain intention. But when you're learning, you don't know exactly where you're supposed to be going or how to manage your weight. Sometimes working in the opposite direction can help. So if I know where my foot placement should be, then I can gear the movement of my body in the same direction. Why? Because of course the intention of movement in my spine, creating space for the lady or getting ready to move into a natural action, it affects where my foot lands because it affects the poise of my body and the direction of my spine. So it's not just, okay, well that's the way it's written, so that's why we do it. There's always a good reason for things. But I know there are a few things that you found when you were looking through the book where there was something different in footwork or foot position that confused you a little bit. So that's where we have to know how to go back and forth. So let's look at the turning lock, specifically the ending, and then where you would go to see the difference in the position of the foot if you go into promenade position, so that you can help to manage your weight and create space for your partner. Somebody wants some attention. Sit down, puppy. That's a good boy. Let's go now to the technique book. See if I can find my place here. The turning lock. So if you look at the turning lock, so the right foot back, right side leading, that's step 1. And there's the left foot crossing in front. Now the third step is still backing DC, but you can see it's back and slightly rightward, and that's because of the commencing to turn left to indicate that we're going to come out. And here, the way it's written, you can see the left foot to the side and slightly forward. That is if you're going to follow it with a natural turn. So we would not be dancing a chasse there. And there is a note. Okay, if we go to the bottom of the page, you'll see the note that the turning lock may be ended in promenade position, and in that case refer to the outside change. And the outside change again is written the same way, but there is an outside change to promenade, and so that is on page 20, and you'll see there, this is again step 3, so this would be the same thing as the end of the turning lock. Left foot to the side in promenade position, facing diagonal wall, moving line of dance. So you see the left foot there is to the side. That slightly forward is not there. So the spine then, your spine is back a little bit further, which is giving the lady the space that she needs to go into promenade. So that the position of the foot is very important because it reflects where your body is. We should also look then at the weave. Now I'm looking at the basic weave, but we could also be dancing the weave from promenade. And once again, the way it's written, so we'll look there. Step 6 is the same place. It's the side and slightly forward, but that is not a promenade. So in this case, the weave would be followed by a natural figure, like let's say natural turn. Now, there should be a note, yes. So we go to the bottom of the page again. Basic weave may be ended in promenade position. But there's no note there for you to check and go back to the outside change. But you need to know that. You need to know that lost my place here, that we would go back again to the outside change when it's ended in Promenade. So these are things that a novice reading the book could get very confused about, but if you're just using it as a reference, then it's very helpful for you to understand these little notes and to get better control over your weight. So there you have your references in the technique book.